for entrepreneurial journalism products and services. One way to start is to think about our own capabilities, our own capacities, what we actually do well. So we can start from the external world and what problems are out there, what opportunities are out there based on new technologies. But we can also start from ourselves and our own capabilities, because that's, in many cases, what we might know best. One model for doing so has been dubbed effectual entrepreneurship. And this is the process of thinking about 4 core areas of our own strengths and capabilities. The first is thinking about our own skills, what we can do. So we might, for example, be able to translate from Arabic to Hebrew to English to French to various other languages. We might be able to explain complicated information very clearly. We might be able to code in a number of programming languages or develop a bot. Or we might be able to take advantage of sensors because we know how sensors work and gather information from our natural environment about pollution levels or air quality levels or noise levels based on our knowledge of how sensors work and the skill we have at deploying those sensors. So our skills can be helpful to assess in order to identify what we can actually do as part of the process of thinking about what idea we might want to focus on. Secondly, we have a set of knowledge. We know certain things. We know about the history of a particular place or about the feelings that people have about a particular topic or about how something works, whether it's a scientific topic or a complex military subject. We have knowledge in different arenas that other people don't have, that's unique to us. And each person, regardless of their level of education or where they're from or how they were raised or what they've done in their career, has a set of skills and a corresponding knowledge. And it might be a different kind of knowledge than what's commonly prized. So it might be an emotional intelligence that they have, or it might be knowledge of a particular community that they have that's unique to them. And those can provide valuable seeds for a new product or service, a new project, a new venture. The third thing that people have is passion around a topic or a subject or a problem or an issue. People have a fire in their belly to make the world better in some particular place or solve a particular problem or to enjoy something that they have a passion for, whether it's soccer, whether it's solving a particular medical conundrum or making the legal profession more effective or solving a business problem or reaching a consumer who this founder is really excited about. People have passions and they're motivated deep inside themselves to do something, to accomplish something, to serve something, to work on something. And this is particularly important in the world of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial journalism because we reach obstacles, we face obstacles no matter what we're developing. And these obstacles can be in the form of people not being interested, having a hard time reaching people, having a hard time getting the product to work the way we want it to work, getting people to consider paying for it in one way or subsidizing it in another way. There are all kinds of problems that we inevitably encounter. And if we don't have that passion for the topic or the subject or the product or service, that's often hard. It's often hard to sustain ourselves through those obstacles. It's often the passion that fuels us through those difficult passages of entrepreneurial processes. And finally, we have a network. We have people that we know. And every one of us, no matter where you are or who you work with, you have a network of people. They can include your personal friends, they include your family and your extended family. They include the people you've worked with in the past, the people you work with now, the people you went to school with, the people that you know through friends of yours and through other hobbies that you have or other professional activities or volunteer activities or religious activities or political activities or social activities. We all have networks of people, much actually wider in many cases, circles of people than we realize. And we can capitalize on this network not only to learn about particular communities or particular problems or new kinds of technologies, but also to find potential partners who can help us address certain things we have to take care of, whether that's aspects of the business that we're not accustomed to working on or parts of the marketing process that we're not familiar with. So this network that you have can be really valuable in developing your own product or service. And what I encourage you to do as you're thinking about what you might start and how you might develop your own personal product or service, however small or large, is to assess yourself on these four different types of criteria in terms of your skills, your knowledge, your passion, and your network. And you might find that you have particular strengths that you haven't really thought about, and that might lead you to opportunities that you hadn't really thought about based on who you know, what you can do, what you know, and what you're passionate about. And this is a way to make this practical for yourself. You can think about what you're good at and make a list of those things. And there's no need to be humble here. This is really just for yourself. And one way to think about it is if you were forced to teach someone something, or if you were forced to perform in a talent show of some sort, not a performance talent show with the arts, but a talent show that allowed you to show any skill or strength that you had, what would you do? What are those things that you consider to be things that you can do that maybe other people can't do quite as well or haven't had as much of a chance to practice as you have? What do you know about? If you had to answer questions about a topic, what topics would you consider those that you know about? What do you really believe in? What's at the core of what you believe in and what makes you tick? What gets you up in the morning? What keeps you up at night in terms of concerns? What does your heart really care about? And then people you know. And this really requires you to kind of list out the different categories of people you know. People you work with, people you used to work with, people you studied with, people you grew up with, people in your family, immediate family, extended family, and so on. And then finally, the last category you could add in this exercise is the things you want to improve at. So the entrepreneurial process can be one of growth and learning, and it's useful to think about what are the kinds of things you want to get better at. Do you want to develop certain skills with multimedia? Do you want to develop skills with writing? Or do you want to develop certain business skills or marketing skills or people skills? Maybe leadership skills are skills you want to develop, or skills working with people in a particular part of the world, or addressing a certain kind of topic or issue. And by knowing these 5 things, by thinking about these 5 things and surfacing what might be hidden back there in your mind somewhere, you're able to start with some raw materials that can really be a great set of raw materials for innovation and creation. When Apollo 13 was suffering, was struggling, one of the things they did was to get the supplies on the table and think about what were all the things they actually had that they could use. And when artists and sculptors and creators think about what they're going to create, one of the things they'll do is they'll gather their supplies, they'll put everything out on the table and think about what parts could work together. How could we create something new out of this set of raw materials that we have? And that's part of the effectual entrepreneurship approach. When we're developing a new opportunity or thinking about a new product, we want to think about, as I mentioned earlier, potentially think about a problem that we want to solve. And this would be a problem that people actually care about. There's a difference between a painkiller and a popsicle when you think about products and services that are marketed out there. People will enjoy a popsicle from time to time, but if money's tight, or if they don't have much time, or if they don't have the wherewithal to go and get a popsicle, they'll skip that. Whereas a painkiller is something people need to have. It's not something they just want to have, it's something they need to have. They'll pay extra for it, they'll go the extra mile to go and get it. They will take it even if it has side effects or if it's not perfect, because they need that painkiller. So when you're thinking about developing a product or service, it's useful in many cases to think about whether there is a painkiller aspect to it or if it's more of just a popsicle. It's not to say that popsicle products and services can't be successful, but it's a little bit harder because people are less motivated in some cases to use those products and services than they are those products and services that solve a real problem, a real pain point for them. It's valuable also to look across categories, to look at other solutions. If you're creating something in the business realm, you could look at something that's worked in the sports or travel or culture realm. Or if you are working in a particular country in a part of Europe or Latin America or Asia, it might be useful to look at other countries near you or even far from you and look at how others have solved a similar problem in that particular country. There are soccer-focused websites, for example, in many countries. And starting a new one in your particular part of the world, it might be beneficial to see what are the most effective tactics employed by others who have started effective, successful soccer-focused websites in other countries. This may seem obvious, but many people end up reinventing the wheel when they start something new. They start it as if no one else has ever done that before, and they end up making the same mistakes that others have made with very similar products or services. Identifying pockets of prosperity means thinking about where the money lies. Now, the message I want to convey here is not that money should drive everything, but in some cases, we want to think early on about whether in fact there are people in this ecosystem that we're focused on, whatever the product or service may be, that actually do have the money to pay for the product or subsidize the product by sponsorship or advertising, or whatever the revenue streams that we're envisioning. We want to make sure that there is some money there in some way, or that we have made allowances for the fact that there really isn't, and therefore we have an alternative set of approaches in mind. In some cases, early on, we can focus on curating rather than creating new original content. This is useful in the early stages of products or services or news products that may otherwise, or in the long run, require heavy investment in original reporting. In some cases, we can start by building on what's already out there, building on the reporting and information that's already been done, because there are, in fact, lots and lots and lots of people generating new content all the time. And there's a case to be made that not only is there a need for more content, but there's a need for curation of that existing content to help get the information to the people that actually need it. And curation can be, in many cases, more efficient, financially speaking, in the early phases of a product than investing in huge, big chunks of original reporting and original product creation before you're certain that the audience really needs this, that the community really needs that, and that you have a workable approach. Finally, start with something pure and simple. Start with something very, very focused and clear. If you have a news empire that you're interested in building for lawyers around the world, start with a simple newsletter focused on a particular kind of lawyer in a particular community, focused on around a particular set of topics that you know you can cover well in that newsletter. And from there, if that works, if that addresses a need, if that scratches an itch, you can expand the number of topics or the number of cities you're serving or the type of news content that you're creating beyond just a newsletter. But start with that pure and simple thing so you can do one thing really, really well and then build on that one thing once you've identified what's working about it and what's not. Doing too many things too early on is one of the main failure points for entrepreneurial journalists across different categories. And that's what I mean by saying that they do too much and have no focus. They create a newsletter and also a podcast and also a video show, and they create it in 2 different languages in 2 different cities, and they're doing all of that at once before they've even identified whether it really is a market that wants this information, that needs this information, that's willing to pay for this information, and before they figured out whether they can reach the audience through effective marketing channels. So avoid doing too much by doing one thing really, really well at first. And avoid doing too little listening. So a lot of people make the mistake of assuming they know the community really well or they know the problem really well, and they just jump right in there. And while we do want to jump in before we're 100% certain of how this works, we want to make sure we're listening before, during, and even after we've launched a product so that we're able to make adjustments. One of the benefits of being in an interactive digital world is we can actually listen to the signals that people are sending by virtue of looking at what they're clicking on, if they're opening our newsletter, for example, or clicking on links, if they're responsive when we ask them about the product or service. So we want to make sure we do that listening so we can make adjustments and we can make the product better from a very, very early stage.